Of course, yeah.
They'll find the answer.
Yeah, science changes.
All right. Yeah. And this is even after Albert Einstein quoted the moralist. Albert Einstein. I know it does. I know it does. The Bible, it's transitory.
God, it doesn't change.
No, the Quran is consistent.
Exactly. Yeah.
Why is it consistent?
Because it's written by God.
Well, you haven't read it, have you? No. How can you say it's wrong then?
I can't.
So how can you say it's wrong? You can't. So take that.
No, that's a fair point. Yeah.
Thank you. All right. So the question, you get me, right? So
you're arguing against science, though. You've got no.
I'm with science. You're against science.
What? How can I be against science?
You? Okay, I'll take. Is there any right? According.
Why do Shias kill each other?
No idea, mate. No idea, mate. Go speak to them.
That's a conversation that we've had about 1,000 times.
And you know
about 1,000 times.
Yes. Thank you.
Let me ask you a question.
Go on.
If science says to us that we may never find out where the universe came from.
No, it will do eventually.
I mean, no.
It doesn't.
Well, it does. Because,
No, it doesn't.
okay, Lawrence Krauss has authored more than 300 books, mathematician, physicist.
You ever heard of Lawrence Krauss?
Very famous.
He's your boy. He's your poster boy.
No, hold on a second. He's a very well-renowned. He's a very
You should have a book with you of him.
He says,
I've not read it yet.
we may never find out what came before the Big Bang.
Oh, I suppose so. Yeah.
Now,
we may never. No?
Okay, so at that point of the Big Bang, or what came before, may well come down to reasoning and applying
scientific evidence.
But hold on a second. Well, we might never have the scientific evidence. So it comes to so therefore a valid way of finding out. No, hold on a second. Hold on a second. A valid way of finding out things is by deduction.
No.
Well, it is. It's a valid way to find out things. I'll give you an example. You see a house that's burnt down. Through deduction, you deduce that there must have been a fire. You don't need someone to show you a picture of when the house was on fire because because cause and effect, you deduce that it's more likely that there must have been a fire. Well,
blown up causing a fire.
Heat, which causes fire, right? So you don't need someone.
When you see the charge remains.
You don't doubt the fact that there must have been some form of heat or fire, right? Right? Okay. Now, when the universe came into being, we may never know how it came into being.
14.5 million years ago.
14 billion.
Billion, sorry, billion.
Now you can fight that if you want to, but well, if you let me finish,
Yeah, let me finish what you're saying.
So there are some variables. There are some variables, some possibilities of how the universe may have come into being. Why don't you give me 2 minutes and then you let me have a chance? Well, you're talking rather loudly in my ear, so it's rather.
Why is it invalid?
We're just saying it's invalid.
Why is it invalid?
Because he's going to extrapolate from this house burning down, cause and effect, to there's a tree, there must be a cause, we don't know the cause, therefore there must be a God. We've heard it all before. You would think that he's a good speaker, a bit better than you because he doesn't get too excited. But he's a thinker. But you ought to think up something new. It's the same old stuff we hear. I like to come here because it's free and sometimes it's entertaining, but you hear the same old stuff all the time.
Yeah. Do you know why you keep hearing the same old stuff? Because it's the truth.
No, it isn't.
It is. So you're saying to me, have you seen a house burnt down over there?
Don't interrupt me, you get to know.
Yeah. Have you seen a house burnt down over there? Using his analogy, which you said is irrelevant.
Do you want to take me down the same road?
No.
Sense of a creator. So there was no God, there was no creator, it came into being by itself, right? That's one deduction that you might make. The other deduction is...
No, not at all, no.
Hold on a second, well, have you got any more variables that could have happened?
No, we don't know yet. The truth is we don't know yet.
No, but you can come up with variables as to what the causes may have been.
It doesn't matter what the variables are, the fact is that we don't know.
Well, we do know that it had to be one of two things, right?
Do you agree that the Big Bang happened?
Well, the Quran actually mentions the Big Bang, but we'll get to that later. I'm giving you the two main variables.
A billion years ago, you agree on that one?
No. Well, we're not told as to what the date was. The mention in the Quran is ayam, which means large or very great time.
It's ambiguous in the Quran then.
Well, the Quran does not claim to be a book of science, though it touches on things of nature. So as the famous
Quran is a book of everything.
well, if you ask me a series of questions, we won't deal with the initial one, which is the Big Bang, which is what we were talking about.
Yeah, but you don't
So
know.
either, well, if you give me a chance, and I'll let you come in then, and you can disagree with me if you want to. Okay. So it's happened by itself, or it was made to happen. Now, if we look at the universe, we're told by people like Lawrence Krauss that at t equals 0, in other words, right at the moment of the Big Bang, there was no matter, there was no time, there was no history. Everything came into being at that time, at that point, right? Possibly. Right, possibly. Now, I'm not telling you that you have to accept my reasoning, because you could argue that it's subjective. My reasoning is subjective, and I've arrived at my conclusions through exactly. But what I would urge you to do is this: at least think about the fact that does it make sense to you that more stars than grains of sand on every beach of this earth came from nothing, and that nothing made it, and that nothing created it, and all that energy and all that matter and all those very precise laws that govern the universe?
Who do you think created it?
Well, when I look at something of incredible energy, of organization, I deduce that there has to be an organizer.
Only one has a say.
I deduce that there has to be a creator, because I can't see in the universe anything coming into being from an absolute nothingness.
So how do you choose which creator? How do you choose Allah?
That's a very good question.
Which one of the 2,000 gods?
That's a very good question.
And not only that, why are you right and the others are wrong?
That's a very good question. So do you accept the possibility that there could be a creator then?
No.
You don't. But the variables that I have given you, you would prefer to believe in something that you can't prove?
I believe that we will find out eventually.
Okay.
What happened before the Big Bang.
So that's a belief.
No, it's not a belief.
Well, it is a belief, isn't it?
Atheism isn't a belief.
Well, if you say I believe that we will find out.
You're using my word. No.
I'm just saying what you said. Well, I'm just saying what you said.
I don't worship a god. I don't read a book. That is a belief. I haven't got blind faith. No.
Well, you have blind faith. You have blind faith. Hold on a second. Well, you have blind faith that science will, at one point in time, be able to answer all the questions.
Science isn't blind faith.
No. You're misunderstanding what I've just said.
Science progresses day after day after day after day.
Science is observation. I know that. But your belief of that evidence.
It's not a blind faith.
Well, your belief of that evidence is not absolute or a certainty, right?
The fact that science changes, whereas your book and his book don't change, they're set in concrete.
Do you believe that
is a blind faith?
Okay, hold on a second. Is it absolute that science will find out what happened before the Big Bang?
Nothing's absolute.
Okay, so it is a belief then.
Of course it's not. No, it's not.
Well, it's not certain then, is it?
No, it's not a belief that you believe in God. No,
hold on a second. But your concept. But you see, look, you misunderstand the reasoning.
No, I'm not. No.
The concept. Well, let me try to explain to you better.
So if you worship a God, you believe in God, and you pray to a God, that is a belief. I don't worship or pray to anything because things change.
Do you think it's blind belief?
Of course it is. Yeah.
Okay.
Because you've got no evidence.
Let me give you some evidence.
What evidence is your God?
Let me give you some evidence then.
You cannot prove to me now this second.
Let me give you evidence.
You can't.
Let me give you.
Just let him try.
First of all, when we talk about evidence,
here we go.
Hold on a second. Let's define what you mean. If you're looking for a picture, of God,
show me
then absolutely I would not be able to prove the existence of God through it.
Of course not.
Right. So I would do it through, again, what science tells me about the universe. So, for example, hold on a second. Science said. Hold on a second. Well, you say you say that I can't, but you won't even hear what I have to say. You have to give me a chance, don't you?
Let me finish it.
Science says, at the moment of the Big Bang.
Yeah, but that's
hold on a second.
All you keep going about is a Big Bang.
Well, science says that was the beginning, so it's a good point to start, isn't it?
We don't know what happened before the Big Bang. So what do you keep going on about?
Well, why don't you give me a minute, and then you might see what.
Give you about 10 minutes.
Well, I'll give you 10. I'll give you 10 after me. But you've asked me about 20 questions as well within that 10 minutes. Yeah.
I've got that clever.
Okay. So now, at the moment of the Big Bang, we have certain laws that have to be in place, right? Certain measures of gravity, of the cosmological constant, of the strong forces of neutrons and protons and how they're held together to form the very basic chemical reactions for the universe to even have a chance to function in the way that it functions, right?
Yeah.
So let's have a look at just one of those laws, the law of gravity. The precision of the law of gravity is such.
Fine-tuning, yes.
Hold on a second. That if you change it by 1 part in 100 million billion 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 billion, the universe doesn't have a chance to come into being.
It doesn't prove you're God.
Well, what it does do is this: if there are only 2 variables,
there's nothing.
If there are only 2 variables, happen by itself or made to happen, and the one of happening by itself is infinitesimally small on balance of probability, then the other must be true.
Why? Why?
Because that's logic, that's reasoning.
It's not logic.
Of course it is. Let me give you an example. If you've got a coin and there's a head and a tail, and you flick that coin, what's the chance of you getting a head?
50-50.
50-50, right? Right. Okay, if I told you that I flicked a coin that wasn't weighted and just randomly flicked that coin and I got a billion heads one after the other, would you believe that that was possible?
It's possible, yes.
Okay, would you accept it as a reasonable outcome though? Would you do that? Of course you would not. But you see, when it comes to the universe, billions of times, and it lands on head every single time, and you would rather, hold on a second, and you would rather believe that that's a more viable possibility than the flip of the coin, which is that, hold on a second, anything that is that precise, that requires that level of precision, couldn't just simply happen randomly.
Okay, so
someone had to make it happen. So how did that someone come into being?
So who created your creator?
So that's a very good question.
Because I asked the last bloke.
Well, that's a very good question. That's a very good question. And actually, Allah addresses that point in the Quran. And Allah says, if Allah had shared His dominion with other creators, then there would have been much conflict. You would have seen much conflict in terms of who governs what and who does what. And we don't see that. Number 2, there are certain attributes of the creator. So he could be created. He could be...
By who?
Well, again, that's a variable. It's not about who created, but a variable as a created creator or an eternal creator. And for the universe to be created, when you use your deduction, if you were to address the issue in terms of created creator, then you'd end up with what's called an infinite regress. So you end up with one created creator, another created creator, another. For example, if I said to you that for me to pour this glass of water, I have to ask your permission. I have to ask your permission, right? And you say that I can't give you that permission, I have to ask his permission. And he says I can't give you the answer, I have to ask his permission. Infinite regress would indicate that there would be no universe, because it would simply go on forever.
There's been no creator.
That's what it means. There's no creator.
Well, that's your. But you see, sir. But sir,
So if you don't know, then how do you know?
But sir, look, going back, sir, with all due respect, sir, with all due respect, sir, with all due respect, sir, with all due respect.
Were you there?
No.
Exactly.
But sir, you know,
Who created then? That's what we're trying to ask the gentleman.
So then you do accept the possibility of creation then.
So if you don't know, you can't say that there was no
Yes,
creator.
because we don't have proof. But
That's very commendable. That's commendable. That's commendable. Okay, you see, look, sir, with all due respect,
We will find out.
I think he said the same
I
thing.
truly believe we will. It may not be in my lifetime, but we will find out eventually.
sir, with all due respect,
Before the Big Bang.
sir, with all due respect,
But it's not down to. It won't be down to a book.
sir, with all due respect, well, it's a book that you've never read.
No,
You've never analysed.
Don't put me as
You've never analysed.
No, not at all. No.
And yet now you believe, again, that's another belief,
Well, no,
that it must be false.
no, but science isn't a belief.
Well,
Yes, it is.
You have not analysed. You have not analysed something that you deny.
Science once said the world was flat. Was that true?
No, the Bible said the world was flat, didn't it?
Yeah, and people and science also said that too. Is that true?
Oh, no, but it's not
has that ever been true, in fact?
Of course not.
Exactly.
No, but
science said that. Science is as much of a belief, as much of a religion as anything else when you really check it, because we cannot prove anything.
No, that's the whole point.
But going back to my
science works is to change constantly.
Exactly. The Bible changes itself.
The
Bible's always been the same.
The Bible is wrong.
And to be honest, look, for me as a Muslim, there is no opposition to science and Islam. I don't have to worry about what science may discover. I applaud it. I encourage it. Well, I'm not a Christian. I'm not a Christian, so I can't justify what they say, right? Now, going back to my initial going back to my initial point, you know, if you were to buy a phone, or you're buying a TV, or choosing a school for your children, commonly what we do is we acquire the views of many people, and we build up a picture as to what we feel is the best probability or chance of those outcomes being favourable to us. So for example, should I buy this 50-inch Samsung TV? Well, you go and you read your reviews, and if hundreds of thousands of people say it's 5-star TV, it's the best TV on the market, and you get one guy who says didn't like the casing. Hold on a second. I didn't like the casing, right? Now, the chances are that most reasonable people would not be deterred from buying that TV, because on balance of probability, it's far more likely that that television is a good television. Now, when it comes to religion, people will grapple and grasp at the infinitesimally small possibilities and probabilities that it somehow came into being by itself. And on the other side of the coin is an absolute certainty that it must have been designed and created. But you deny that. And then you tell me that I'm following blindly and you're enlightened with knowledge and understanding.
But you can't prove your God, can you?
Well, when you talk about proof, as I explained to you, for me,
anything,
okay, well, I have. I think I've gone quite a distance. Well, can you explain to me how the law of gravity finds its precision randomly?
Of course I can't. I'm not a scientist.
Okay.
Yeah, but you believe in it exists,
sorry?
don't you?
You're assuming.
You believe in
hold on a second. Okay, so you believe there's a multiverse, do you?
I'll be up there if it is.
Well, how do you know?
No, but then why are you bringing it into the argument if you don't even know that exists or doesn't exist?
No,
I know, but you know it exists.
Of course, yeah.
No.
You're assuming.
Anyway, belief or disbelief.
Well, I'm assuming.
I'm assuming. Gravity, I'm not going to levitate.
Well, I'm assuming that because we can only see this one universe, that's all we can work with, and anything else is purely conjecture because it's not evidence-based. Well, as I explained to you, when you see the universe organized in the way that it is, it points towards a designer and a creator. Whenever you have something of complexity, like that watch, you don't attribute it to sand being heated under a magnifying glass and things moving together and forming a watch. You know that somebody must have put that together. When you look at the universe is far more complex than your watch, yet you attribute randomness for its construction. So do you believe that there is a possibility of a God then? Yes. You do believe that there is a possibility. Well, that's very commendable. That's very commendable. So what I would urge you to do is look at the two probabilities, i.e. the universe coming into existence, from nothingness, as we're told that it did, and...
No, that's not a fact. You know that's not true.
Well, Lawrence Krauss...
Excuse me,
Lawrence Krauss...
Okay. We don't know it came from nothing. Okay. We don't know.
Do you know any scientist that says...
We don't know where it came from.
Do you know any renowned physicist that says it came from nothing? No. I do. Lawrence Krauss.
One. You cited one.
Hawkins.
No, none. He knows one.
Hawkins.
One is infinitely more than
Hold on. Hawkins.
Getting heckled here, look.
Hawkins.
Yeah, Hawkins, yeah.
Maldonov. I've named 3 now. scientists, renowned, who say that at one point in history there was no universe. At t equals 0, Lawrence Krauss says that there was no time, there was no energy, there was no mass, there was nothing. It was a vacuum, a void of anything. And out of that void...
You don't know that.
Well, so with all due respect, you say that you believe science, right?
Of course. No. Yeah, the science is the truth.
Okay. You believe that science is the truth.
Science is not a belief.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
Sir, you believe that science has the answers. Let me be politically correct. Science has the answers.
It finds out the answers. Of course it does.
Right.
Yeah, but even then, the absence of evidence is not evidence of absence.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah,
Now, hold on a second. So if we go by what is prevalently believed today,
we wouldn't advance without science, would we?
see, but this is rather unusual.
We wouldn't advance without.
I'll tell you why it's unusual. Because you say that you respect science, you use it as the crutches of your argument.
You do, like.
You use it as the crutches of your argument. And then when I talk about that very science that you use in your own defense, you deny it.
Yeah, but you're not talking about the same science.
I'm talking about what is prevalent today and what is accepted widely.
You're talking about,
and you're denying that because it's convenient to deny it.
You're talking about what you think is the creator.
You just mentioned the number of scientists.
No. What I'm claiming is this.
I don't know what I've said, but I'm going to guess those scientists are making a hypothesis that there was nothing.
Well, Lawrence Krauss says analytically, empirically, through observation, through calculation, we can say that at one point there was no universe, there was no time, there was no energy, there was nothing. And out of nothingness, this universe came into being. Now, if you want to believe, because
yes, but you keep on. Okay. You keep saying that, but you're wrong.
Okay, hold on a second.
No, you keep saying.
Okay, hold on a second. Do you have analytical and empirical evidence to prove that the universe came from nothing?
What I'm saying to you is.
Do you have that?
What I'm saying to you is that we will find out.
No. Do you have empirical, analytical evidence to...
In years down the line, we will find out what happened before the Big Bang, and it's certainly not...
I'm asking you a very direct question. Do you through empiricism, do you know, through analytical empiricism, that the universe came effectively provable science?
Empirical science? No.
Bearing in mind that at the point of the Big Bang, all non-science breaks down.
Yet you believe that it did come from nothing?
No. I don't know where it come from.
Or you certainly believe that it came from no God.
No, of course not. No.
Oh, so you believe that there might have been a God?
No. Well, there is a possibility. There is a possibility there might be a God. Yes.
Okay. And what would convince you?
The cloud now.
What would convince you of that possibility being a reality?
If a God came out the cloud now and said, "This man's..." Sorry, what's your name?
Abbas.
Nice to meet you. If a God came out the cloud, David. Sorry. If a God came out the cloud now and said that you were talking the truth, then I'd have to believe.
Actually, Allah addresses that in the Quran as well.
By the way, David.
Allah addresses that as well in the Quran, that they wish to see Allah, but even if Allah showed them, they would still deny. Because
you say no.
Exactly. Because when Moses was asked by his people, "Show us God, take us to the mountain."
He'd probably be drunk or something. Yeah.
You see? So the reality is this. That we in life...
You don't deal in reality, do you, really?
Well, you're telling me that I'm illogical, yet I'm dealing with science. You're telling me that you're logical, yet you deny the very science that you say that you
I'll tell you something, and this is one thing that everybody needs to realize about science, and this is scientific fact. We are human beings, so on and so forth. Correct. We only have limited perception of total reality anyway. Do you know that out of the total spectrum of light, we can only see a small fraction? That means, ultimately, the reality that we see is only a very, very small fraction of what is there. Therefore, how can anybody say what is real and what isn't really anyway? Therefore, there is so much going on around us that we haven't even perceived.
So you have to think about these things. So, for example, life on Earth, a sterile universe, because it was millions of degrees centigrade after the Big Bang, for many tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, possibly millions of years, a completely sterile environment. Well, actually, we're talking about millions of degrees centigrade, and it cooled down and it condensed, and then you have your galaxies, your planets, and everything else that forms from that being condensed. Now, a sterile environment, and yet we have biological living cells that appear on Earth from dead matter.
Chemical, the sunlight, Lightning strikes.
Do you realise how complex the basic living cells are?
It happens. Yeah,
They're incredibly complex. I'll give you an example.
Well, that's how wonderful it is, though.
Exactly, it's wonderful because when you
it wasn't put here by a creator.
Well, you see, if you said to me that this whole of Park Lane was just bricks, sand, cement, wiring, and it was thrown out from space, and it came and assembled itself here, and it became Park Lane, you would say that was crazy, right? Yet you attribute something that's far more complex.
So what did your God wait
to come into being by accident?
If your God created,
by some random event.
If your God created 14.5 billion years ago, which is a fact. We know that.
Yes.
Why did he wait? Why did he wait up till just a few thousand years ago to write the Quran?
So you're now saying you're saying to me that if you had those answers, would you accept the existence of God then? So why do you ask me that question then? No. If you're asking me a genuine, honest question, that look, I'd believe this because you showed me some signs and you showed me how remote and how intrinsically impossible life is and the universe is to just come about by itself. But you have to explain to me this fact.
You keep saying that, but I didn't say that, did I? With all due respect, I said that we don't know.
But then you're asking me.
I didn't say that it came into creation by itself.
Right.
I'm saying that we don't know.
But
there's a big difference.
What do you think might have happened? What do you think may have happened?
I don't know.
Okay, but
I've got a clue.
Do you think
you ever got a clue?
Well, I do have a very good clue. I have a very good clue. Things happen by themselves, or they are made to happen. Are there any logical?
No, that is true.
Are there any logical?
Something happened by itself.
Are there any other logical?
Either it happened by itself,
or someone made it happen,
or something. Someone, something, or it happened.
Something made it happen, or it happened by itself.
Someone, or it happened.
Those are the variables, and that's what you have to deal with.
It didn't happen because
someone made it.
I never invented.
They're not the variables, are they? Because the other variable is we don't know yet.
That's not a variable, though.
It is.
No,
we don't know.
But that must be true.
Because even the answer to that question would fall between those two definitions.
The whole point of all of this is
the answer will be found.
Even if the answer is found, it has to fall within those two definitions.